Hi everybody, I am Jesse Kramer and I'm the Director of Exhibits here at Conner Prairie, and I'm joined today by our wonderful filmographer, Keith Harshbarger, who's our manager of social media and does all of these different things. So he's going to be following me around today while we talk about Habitat. So Habitat is the latest exhibit that's opened up here at Conner Prairie. It takes place mostly in the Treetop Outpost area, but it does go to a few other areas as well, like Civil War Journey, which is where we're going to walk to right now. So we have worked with a number of different local artists on this exhibit, and we're going to see one of the first artists work here in just a moment. So trying to make sure you can see me while I'm walking. If you look out over here by our covered bridge, we have a whole section that is based on dragonflies and their habitat. And so it's a really cool little area where we talk about the importance of dragonflies as a species and how they interact with the rest of the species that are living in the same habitat as they are. These sculptures were done by artist Lisa Elliott, and she has done some really cool reclamation work with different pieces. So if we go over here, you can see what I'm talking about here. One of the great things about this is she's used a lot of reclaimed materials. So you have a golf club and some piping, some chicken wire, and what's really cool about these is when we have a windy day, they bounce around. So they're interactive kinetic sculptures that are out here, and we put them in an area where we would actually have dragonflies. So while they were installing these, really cool thing, they actually saw a bunch of dragonflies flying around while they were doing it, and you might actually see one today if we stayed here long enough, but we've got a lot more to show you. So I'm going to walk over to our White River overlook now. And while we're walking over there, I'll tell you a little bit more about this process. So we work with the Smithsonian Traveling Sites, which is Smithsonian Institution's traveling exhibits. We basically leased this exhibit from them for a 2-year period of time. And the Smithsonian does larger traveling exhibits, and then they also do some of these smaller exhibits like Habitat, which was also in conjunction with Smithsonian Gardens. So basically what the Smithsonian does is they create all of the content for this exhibit, and they build something out to where they've got their version of it, which is actually on the National Mall right now. You can see it. And then they have the traveling version of it. And the traveling version, they don't actually send us any of the materials. They just send us the files for all of the different panels that you see. We are able to work with them to some degree to be able to switch out certain things on panels to make it more specific to our site, which is something that we did do here, and I'll point that out in a couple different places. But basically, we get those panels, all of these are panels, all of the content, and then all of the other elements of the exhibit, we work with local artists, or we actually create them here in-house ourselves. So they've provided us some schematics that we were able to base this off of, and we created these really cool pieces. So we'll show some of those in a minute here. Coming up here, we're going into an area where we're talking about how oceans are impacted. This area is called Foundations of the Sea. And basically we talk about how all of the different waterways that are out there affect one another. So we've got this posted out by the White River. And if you look out on the White River right now, you can see it's got some algae growing, it looks like, but Basically, the White River, it's very important that we keep this clean because all of this goes into the Ohio River and then into the Mississippi River and eventually into the Gulf of Mexico and into the world's oceans. So we have this piece of art that's created here where we're talking about how all of this is connected, and so we actually have a connector between the fish and the crab here, freshwater and saltwater, that is actually our little slice of the White River, and this is where Prairie is right here. So it's really important for us to be able to talk about how the impacts of certain things, like pollution, runoff from fertilizer, things like that, really does affect the waterway, and then eventually affects the entire world, all of the oceans, because whatever is coming downstream is going out there. So it's very important that we keep our river clean, and we are trying to do that as best we can. As stewards of about 3 miles of the river, we try and make sure that we're doing everything we can to do that. So shoreline stabilization, which has actually helped to reduce the algae bloom in the Gulf of Mexico, which is basically killing off fish. The algae blooms and sucks all the oxygen out of the area, and then so we're going to continue on over to biomes now to talk about different biomes. We have a rainforest, a desert, things like that. So we're talking about how all of these different areas are connected, and how they interact with one another. How we go from one biome to another. And this is something that the exhibits team worked very hard on. They put all of these together. They had them router cut and then painted them. So we'll see those in just a minute. You see the bear with the fish, and how the fish eat the snails and things like that, the slugs. So we talk about how all of these different things, these different species of plants and animals coexist together in these spaces. So tundra is one of them. We have an aquatic biome, so areas of marshes, tidal pools, things like that. Chesapeake Bay is one that we call out here, and then the desert. So we'll walk back down this way now, and I'm going to take you over to show you some of the nests that we've got. And we've got a whole section on habitat of flight as well. We're not going to go all the way down there today because it's kind of a hike, but we can talk about that for a little bit. It's, we go back towards the top. We can see a little bit more. One of the things that's super cool about Prairie, and a lot of people don't know, is the fact that we have a ton of wildlife. A lot of the encroachment that has occurred from the development in the surrounding area, as some of you may know, Fishers has really blown up over the last several years. There's been so much development that a lot of the animals have moved here because this is a safe space. We have a little over 1,000 acres, and all of these animals have moved into the space to live here and thrive. So we have a herd of deer, we have coyotes, we've got red-tailed hawks, we've got bald eagles, all kinds of different species that live here, pileated woodpeckers. I've seen more birds here than I've seen anywhere, and I grew up in rural Indiana. I've seen more bird species here than anywhere else ever in all my travels. So we are at our next spot in habitat here. So I'm going to talk about bug B&B first. This is an area where we have information on different bugs and how they live. Bug B&B is a fun name for it, bug bed and breakfast. So we've got praying mantis sculpture that our team created here, along with grasshopper. And if you look way back into the trees over there, you'll see a chrysalis. And over on the side of that tree, you can see it from here or not, but
Yeah.
So a caterpillar will eventually form a chrysalis, as you see above here, and then it will become a butterfly or a moth. So yeah, lots of cool sculptures that we've been able to create for this. Lots of work with local artists. As I said, these are some that we did in-house. But speaking of local artists, we have over here, this is a mural that was done by Bucks, the artist. He's a local Indianapolis artist, and just does absolutely phenomenal work. And then atop that, you see a little bee sculpture that our team created as well to go along with it.
Cool.
So now let's talk about keystone species. So keystone species, we've got a little section over here, and this is one of those that we actually augmented from the with the Smithsonian. We had to get their permission to be able to do this for the panel, but we updated it so we can talk about keystone species in our area in the area. So the keystone species here is the beaver, which is basically saying that without the beavers, the entire habitat that we have would cease to exist as it does now. It would be a major, major disruption in the food chain and the way that life occurs in this area. So one of the things that we talk about here, the main thrust of this exhibit is protecting habitats protects life. So it's very important that we are aware that our activity as human beings really does impact everything that occurs in the natural world. And not only are we, if we harm a habitat, we're not just harming the animals in that habitat, we're harming ourselves in the same process. So we've got a really cool interactive here that allows our visitors to be able to create a keystone arch with the keystone species, the keystone being the beaver here. And then it shows some of the other animals that are involved in all of this and some of the plants as well in this ecosystem thriving in the way that it does. So from here, we can go down to the nests, and we'll check that out. You can see multiple different types of nests that our team has built. We created basically to show the different nesting habits of different birds that we have in the area. And one of the great things about this too is this is just a beautiful nature walk. So you get to learn about the habitat that you're in. You also get to, be one with nature, which is one of the great things about Powder Prairie, with how much of the natural world you can explore. And we have multiple different habitats here too. That's the other thing. So when you're here, try and observe that while you're walking through. See if you can spot what different types of habitats we have. So down here, all of our nests. One of the first ones I'm going to point out, we've actually got a spotting scope for, because this is an actual real, this is not reproduction obviously. We have one that is in this tree over here, and that's basically a hollow nest, and it is just a hollow in the tree. If you look through the spotting scope, you'll be able to see it. It points you right to where it is. But this is just a hollow in the tree, and it would be used as a nest by different birds and different animals. Here we have a scrape nest. That's another type of nest. It's just sort of different things that are brushed and scraped together by the birds. And then we have an eagle's nest here, which is pretty much to scale. So it gives you an idea how big an eagle's nest is. They're huge. And then we have our mud nest up here. Another fun one that we have is the urban nest. That we put together with different objects that a bird would find in an urban environment. So a lot of times you'll have things like ribbon and string and wrapping paper and newspaper, whatever it is that they might be able to find that would make a good nesting space for their young. And then we also have a pendant nest, which you can see from over here. And these would hang from the tree in such a way.
What kind of bird uses this?
Great question. I think we've got pendant nests are elaborately woven sacks from branches protecting birds and their nests from predators. And they are made of long, pliable materials such as grasses, hair, bark. So a Baltimore oriole, as seen here, would be one of the birds that would use this sort of a nest. And then the cavity nests, which we were talking about earlier, the hollow woodpeckers. Woodpeckers are a big one for that. So, a couple other places we can show you. We have a monarch habitat that we have actually put in. That was planted here years ago, and it's really good that we have it because it's basically a monarch base station. Monarch butterflies are very important and somewhat endangered creature. So monarchs have a really interesting life cycle. They come from a few mountaintops in Mexico where they're born. They will fly up into the southern area of the United States, up to the Midwest. So they migrate up to there. They lay eggs, die, and the next generation is born. That generation goes all the way up to Canada, and then you have something that's called a super generation that's born, and that super generation will fly all the way from Canada to those mountaintops in Mexico to start the whole cycle over again. So what's really important is that we have milkweed planted and other types of plants that monarchs are attracted to, because this gives them safe places to breed and to be able to continue to propagate their population. So this is a really important part of this exhibit. It's one of my favorite parts. And if you come down here in the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to start to see the monarchs coming through. So that's going to be really cool. We'll have a lot of monarch butterflies over here in the next few weeks. And we're going to wrap up over here with a little section about life underground. So this is an area that we talk about different funguses and different types of mold and things like that. So these fungal activities, what's really fascinating about the mushrooms and the basically the whole network of them that are underground. The fungus is attached to roots, and they actually are doing studies now where they're finding that trees can actually understand and send messages to one another through this fungal network. So really, really cool. Right under your feet, there's this whole network of communication that's happening in this forest right now. This is basically the majority of our habitat exhibit. There is one other spot that we can take you down to if you'd like to go for the walk down to Habitat of 10. And we can show you Scott Shoemaker's work. So Scott has created down this pathway here just an absolutely fantastic sculpture of multiple different birds that he hand carved himself. And he's just done a fantastic job. He collected a bunch of driftwood and put that together. But if you go out to our Prairie Lookout, you can see all kinds of different birds that are flying through here. So again, I've mentioned so many different birds on our site, but you'll see red-tailed hawks. You might see a bald eagle. I've seen a couple while I've been out here. So all kinds of really just fantastic stuff.
And what's the habitat that we weren't able to make it to over by the Connor house?
Oh, yes. So that's another one of my favorites because it's something that you can do at home. We have an area called Homes, and it's over by the Connor House, and we have created a bug house that is a replica of the Connor House. And it's filled with sticks and leaves and bamboo and things like that, but all kinds of great places for bugs to go hide and overwinter, basically. So, if you've got leaves on the ground in the winter, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Bugs and different bees will use that to survive through the winter. So leaving some of those leaves out is actually a good thing because it creates a natural environment that those insects can live in and survive over the winter.
Cool. Was there one more up on the trail on the backside there? No? Okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I was really excited to be able to show you Habitat. It's a fantastic exhibit, and I hope you come out and see it.